Debt collector took money from my account. Now, before we dive in, just a quick reminder. This video is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and should not be considered financial advice. Our full disclaimer is shown here and on our website. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finance with Anthony. So today we're going to be tackling a few unique scenarios ranging from, hey, what do I do after I've been laid off? Or, do I even have a future career to hang on to? These are the kinds of questions that we're going to be answering today. So, let's dive right into a few scenarios. So the first one is, watching my dad and FIL age out of their careers has me, 31, terrified of the same fate. How do I avoid this? I've been wrestling with something that's been eating at me lately. I work in tech/product management, and I'm witnessing both my father and father-in-law go through what I can only describe as slow motion career crisis. Both are good workers, but they're stuck in this horrible limbo where they hate their jobs, but are too scared to make any moves. They're both dealing with this crushing loss of confidence as they age. Neither made it to the executive levels. They were always solid middle management types, but now they're just existing. They come to work, keep their heads down, and pray they can hang on until retirement. They're terrified of being found out or pushed out, and they know their skill sets aren't competitive enough to easily land something new at their age. Here's what's keeping me up at night. I'm only 31, but I'm terrified of ending up in the same position. I have a finance degree and work in product management, but watching them has made me realize that no field is immune to this. It feels like the only escape routes are 1. Build something of your own. 2. Plumb high enough up the corporate ladder that you're untouchable. 3. Accept the same fate. I know I'm probably being paranoid given my age, but I can't shake this fear. I feel like I need to be doing something now to prevent this from happening to me in 20 years. But what? Keep learning new skills, start a side business, switch careers entirely? Has anyone else dealt with this fear or watched their parents go through something similar? What moves can I make to avoid this trap? Any advice from older tech workers who successfully navigate this would be especially appreciated. So this is a very, very, very common thing that happens. Back then, it used to be very simple. You would enter the workforce at around 20-ish age, maybe like 21, 22. And you would actually stay in the same company for sometimes 40 years. So funny enough, when I first started as an intern at Citibank, I actually had a coworker who celebrated their 40th year working at Citibank, and they actually were working, I think, in a very similar position to what they were when they first started. So overall, that's not the trend that works now. Back then, it was okay. It was something that actually happened very commonly. But nowadays, it just doesn't happen. And it happens on both sides. It happens on the employer side, and it happens on the employee side. On the employee side, if you stay 2 or 3 years, that's probably like a lot nowadays. Nowadays, that's probably what most people stay on average, maybe 2 or 3 years. And even on the employer side, the employers don't always keep you around for 40 plus years. Now, to add an extra detail into the wrench here is, hey, I know this is terrible to say, but as you get older, it just happens to all of us. As we get older, it becomes something that, we become fearful of a lot of things. Like, hey, can I still keep up with people who are younger generation, things of this nature. Happens to all of us. We all have these thoughts. But in order to keep yourself fresh and be able to continue to exude confidence, you have to do a few things. The first thing is keep up with your skill set. The second thing is, if you have the ability to get promoted, do it. The higher you are in the corporate ladder, usually the better. Especially as you get older, it becomes more stable if you're in a higher position. So overall, that is important. And then finally, if you have the ability to, start your own business. If you aren't able to actually work past a certain age, maybe sometimes starting your own business and just doing your own thing might be the best way for you. A lot of people, end up, for example, opening like a laundromat, a restaurant, a grocery store. All of these are viable options that you can do and would actually produce income. And of course, since you're the boss, there's no such thing as, you having to, compete with anyone. You're effectively competing with yourself and making sure that you're doing the best you can for your business. And of course, succeeding over other businesses. That's going to be more your competition than other people. So hopefully this helped a little bit, and let's dive right into the next scenario. Just got fired due to restructuring. 3 months of severance pay. Should I reduce my 401k contribs to zero? I'm reeling right now and don't want to make any knee-jerk decisions. Thankfully, the severance package is generous and reflects that the firing wasn't performance-based. The current eliminating any non-essential monthly expenditures, my 401k contributions, are company matched at 3%. What are your thoughts on reducing my 401k contributions to zero during this unemployment time? I'm 52. Thank you for your thoughts. So, this is actually a very critical moment for you. And I would say the most important thing you should be thinking about is not, sadly, your retirement, at least at this point in time. It's really your current financial situation. Do you have enough to pay for your food, for your housing, for all of the aspects that you need to currently live your lifestyle? So you need to be thinking about the current and trying to get yourself out of this, especially if you're considering getting a new job. So overall, I would say just make sure that you take care of your current self. And then once you have another job, then you could go back to thinking about retirement. But the main thing you need right now is to ensure your survival, make sure that everything is good, you have everything you need, and that's going to be key to your mental health. All right, let's move on to the next one. Debt collector took money from my account. Got a few calls from a very well-known debt collection agency in New York. The lady told me I owed them a credit card that I already knew was going to come back to bite me. She told me the lowest I could pay monthly was $150. I told her, okay, I want to do that, and gave her my bank info. Lesson learned. She then started reading me an agreement and attempted to authorize a charge of $1,600. She said she needed my SSN to finalize it, in which I interrupted her and said, I want to do the payment plan we just discussed, like I stated already. She told me the payment plan would take over a year to pay and to just pay the full amount now. I declined and she got angry and started yelling. I declined and she got angry and started telling me I'm avoiding my debt and it wasn't a smart move. I told her I no longer wanted to speak to her and was going to ask for proof of debt before going forward with any payments. She finally said okay and call back if I wanted to go forward with a payment. Fast forward 2 days, my account has $1,600 taken out from their company. I have called 3 times and every person has told me you'll get a call back by the end of today. And I never do. One guy even said to me in a rude voice, so you're accusing one of our employees of lying and stealing? I was told it's legal what they did because I owe them money, but then I saw another website that said they can't just authorize charge without my permission. Any advice? Also, I know it looks like this is a legitimate company, but I called their main number. They have horrible reviews and have been sued multiple times, which I didn't know till I did some digging. So this is actually a very precarious situation overall. So I would say technically if you do owe a debt agency money, they shouldn't be allowed to just go out and, take your funds without at least you authorizing it. Unless it's usually, some companies actually can garnish your wages, like, for example, like the IRS, for example. If you owe taxes and things like that, they can garnish your wages, or if you owe child support, they can also garnish your wages. But usually for debt collection agencies, those are private agencies. Effectively, they're a business. And just like any business, you should give them authorization to actually take out, a certain amount of money from your account. However, it was very clear from the post that he or she never authorized the full $1,600 payment. They only authorized a $150 payment, which the agency went out and actually took the full amount. So I would say you need to make a claim with your bank for the amount, for the $1,600, and just let them know, hey, I authorized this much, $150, but they took $1,600. So overall, a lot of these companies tend to record conversations, just like many companies, especially a lot of companies that are like money-based. So I would say don't try not to say anything that goes against what what happened, because they can actually use it against you. The thing about many agencies is that they'll record your conversations and use this as legal proof that you authorized X amount. And if you say you didn't, then that may cause your bank to actually discredit you and actually you lose your claim overall. Also, one thing about cash is that cash is very, very hard to get back. Cash is one of the instruments that's easy to get. Well, I shouldn't say easy to get, but it's easy to potentially have deposited in your account. But when it's taken out of your account, oh my gosh, it's such a hassle to get it back in. Sometimes it could take months, it could take years, and sometimes you might need to sue the person that took the money from you. So it's a very long and lengthy process. So make sure whenever you do give authorizations to actually take cash out of your account, you're 100% sure that, you know, this is something you want and you want to take out of your account. So let's move on to the next one. Hello everyone, my name is Anthony and I'm the host of TheLostSanctuary. I hope you've been enjoying our content so far, and if you have, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, we have our website up here, and we also have some socials down here, and as always, leave your comments down below. So let's move on to the next one. Is a 20% down payment on a house the best way to go? I'm a huge fan of this subreddit and I live my life by the wiki here. My wife and I are in a good financial situation, so it's less a question of can we put down 20% than should we. This is not an immediate task, by the way, but we expect to need a bigger home due to growing kids within 2 years. We currently live in a townhome I bought pre-COVID for a great price and interest rate. Putting 20% down into a new home at current prices will be a substantial amount of money. Again, we can do it. However, I'm also aware of opportunity costs for locking so much cash up in a house. On top of that, as much as I don't believe in market timing, I do have concerns that the post-COVID spike pulled forward housing price growth. While I'm not concerned about the further affordability piece, if we can get away with putting in less than 20%, that leaves me more money to continue growing in the market, which, well, it's still quite frothy. So it is what it is. Anyway, regardless of the stream of consciousness above, what are the thoughts about 20% or no 20%? Are there any ways to avoid PMI without putting down 20%? What is the conventional wisdom around this day? Thanks in advance. So, this is a great question. So, traditionally, we've been kind of programmed to say 20% down, 20% down, 20% down. That is true. In most instances, if it's an investment property, you have to put 20% down. In most cases, investment properties won't allow you to put anything less than 20% down, and you have to have 6 months of reserve usually. So this is an investment property. However, now if we think about a property that you yourself will be living in, then you actually have the exception to actually put less than 20% down. So you can put 50% down, you can put 10% down, you can even put 5% down. The possibilities are limitless. The one thing about PMI or private mortgage insurance is that PMI is seen as something that is overall not good. And I would say it's not good in a lot of regards where it's not really deductible in most cases, especially if you take out a personal loan. Like when I say personal, I mean like you're taking out a loan for a home that's going to be personally used by you. However, PMI is not usually a large amount every month. There's cases where like PMI might be like between $50 to $100 a month, which is not too bad. And once you actually reach the 20% threshold of the home's value, so essentially either the home's value goes up or you have paid enough to actually reach the 20% threshold, then PMI actually goes away in most cases. Now, what is the argument for putting less than 20%? In most cases, it's good to put 20% less so you have a reserve of funds. So you don't want to put yourself all in and not have enough for repairs, maintenance, and other important items just such as that. The other aspect is you also don't want to over leverage yourself. So you don't want to have like too much leverage in terms of like, having too much debt versus income. So you want to always have like enough for like an emergency fund, enough for repairs and maintenance. Always having a small nest egg that you can tap into is so important. So making sure you always have that is key to your mental sanity. So trust me on that. So overall, I used to be the 20% guy, but now I definitely advocate for, doing 10, 15%. And then, especially if you have the ability to get into a nicer home with this lower down payment, and plus the values of that area are going to skyrocket, especially if it's an area that is an up and coming area or an area that is overall a great investment. So let's dive right into the next one. 55 laid off from software job. Live off 401k. I got laid off a couple of weeks ago. I have no debt, no mortgage, no credit cards, no car payment. I don't think I'm going to be going back into software. Several of my friends have been laid off for months and have not been able to find work. Nobody wants a middle-aged developer. I have a little over 500k in my 401k. I'm thinking about taking half of it and just living frugally until I can retire at 62. Is this a good idea, or should I sell one of my houses? I have two. I live in one and in rehabbing another. The house are each worth about 150k. I plan on doing handyman jobs and part-time work to supplement my income. So, I'm sorry to hear about your situation, and times are tough right now, and overall it's a very difficult time to be in, especially job hunting. So I would say a few things here in terms of like pulling from your 401k. Just make sure you think about all the penalties and things that you'll be have to incur when you do decide to take out of your 401k. That's the first thing I'm going to mention. The next thing is that if you do have a home, maybe think about, if you're okay with this, renting out the home. So there's a lot of property management companies that can help you rent out the home. You won't even have to manage it yourself, and you have to just pay a fee, of course, for the property management company to rent it for you. The other thing is, just like you said, you can also supplement your income. So essentially, you can have your 401k, of course, if you're okay with paying all the penalties and things like that. The second thing you'll have is your home. Since you have two of them, you can rent one of them, have income that way. And then finally, supplementing your income with other sources will also be very beneficial to you. So I would say overall, it's a tough situation, but luckily you do have something to fall back on and a few assets to fall back on. So I think this is key to when being laid off. If you have assets that you can tap into, that's probably going to be the most crucial aspect of being laid off. Just having a reserve, having assets that can produce income on the side, and you yourself being willing to actually accept other employment opportunities, even if they won't pay you as much as they used to. So all of these are important aspects to survive and continue to have the assets that we have in our lives. So that's going to wrap up Finance of Anthony, episode 11. So I hope everyone out there has a blessed day, and adios. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm wishing everyone out there all the best. All right, until next time, adios.